Hello and welcome to the Life is Story podcast. I'm Josh Olds. This is our first episode post-launch week. So I want to thank all of you listeners who signed up, who subscribed, who made all of this just such a resounding success. I'm actually recording this before we do this, so I'm hoping it's going to be a resounding success. I'm counting on you guys to make it so. We're going to be here every Monday chatting with your favorite authors about their latest books and about the art of story. And today you have the distinct honor of listening in to my conversation with New York Times bestselling novelist Tosca Lee. Tosca, I apologize for the lengthy intro, so welcome to the program.
It's so good to be back, and I'm so glad the Life is Story podcast is back, Josh.
Yeah, we are really, really excited about it. This is one of the things that I missed the most from my time away, and it's so great to get back into it. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. You have a new book. You have a new book coming out. It is the second book. This is book 2 in the series. The book's called A Single Light. So kind of give me your elevator pitch for this novel. What is it all about?
So A Single Light is the sequel to The Line Between, which is my novel that came out earlier this year at the end of January. And so the two books basically are the story of a young woman named Wynter Roth. And at the beginning of the first book, she is getting ousted from a doomsday cult, the place that she's effectively grown up in, and she spent the last 15 years of her life. And so she's getting ready to start over in a secular world that she's been taught to regard as evil. And so just as she's starting to make her way in the outside world, very awkwardly, it's very difficult for her, a pandemic has begun, and it came earlier in that same year out of the melting permafrost in Alaska, and it has since worked its way down through the Pacific Northwest and is now sweeping across the nation. And so as this pandemic begins to take hold, to Wynter it looks a lot like the apocalypse that she's always been taught to expect was coming. And as chaos breaks out and there's a cyber attack on the electrical grid and all this stuff happens, it turns into a run-for-your-life adventure. But not just that, Wynter also finds herself in a position to actually be of service to a nation that really needs her. So I can't say too much more than that, but except that A Single Light takes up exactly right where book 1 leaves off.
Yeah, so it's really hard to talk about a sequel and not just give away everything that happens in the first book. I felt that way in writing the review as well. It's sort of like, well, I'll just tell you where we start. I felt in a lot of ways when I was reading A Single Light that, of course, I had read The Line Between as well, but you can almost read A Single Light as a standalone novel, and you won't be entirely lost. You're going to miss out on some of the depth of the story because you're not going to really understand Wynter's background. But you really could pick up book 2 and read it and say, oh, that was a really good story. I need to go back to book 1 and learn more. Was that really intentional on your part when you were writing that, to kind of have that feeling?
You know, I wanted it to be such that you wouldn't be too lost. That said, I like it. You know, I personally like to read books in order, so I hope that given the opportunity that people would. But that said, there are reviewers who have received early copies and they hadn't read the first book, and they've said in their reviews they weren't too lost, and it was, you know, easy to kind of move into that world. So I am happy for that. So, yeah.
You did the same kind of 2-part novel with Progeny and Firstborn. Now, I think those are a little more intimately connected. You kind of have to know the story in Progeny to understand Firstborn, I think, more so than this series.
More so, yeah.
Definitely so.
And I ended the first book on a cliffhanger.
Right,
so
yeah.
I'm sorry. Everybody's mad at me. And, you know, those 2 books were supposed to come out much closer together, like within months, and then this kind of seismic shift in my publishing house happened, and so the second book got delayed for over a year, and that is not how it was intended to happen.
Just left us on that cliff for forever.
Sorry.
I was wanting to know, Do you have a specific tactic in writing sort of the, I don't know, like duology, like a two-book series? Or is that just the way the writing has gone with these particular stories?
Well, it kind of comes down to a couple things. I like the two books just because, historically speaking, when you look at a series with more than two, you can watch reader involvement drop off from book to book.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you've only got the two, then you're not really like dropping off from installment to installment. The other thing is, I have to look at the number of books I have contracted with a certain publisher. So
Right.
that is a consideration. And, with these, I had one book left, so could I still do a third book and do it elsewhere or self-publish it? I definitely could, and I'm open to that if the need should ever arise. But for now, I'm happy with where the story ended.
Yeah.
On the second book.
Yeah. I remember when I was reading A Single Light, there's really, you can divide. And I want to be careful about what I say because I don't want to spoil it or even kind of get into any part of like the middle of the book. But you can really divide the book into two locations. I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really found myself wishing, like, man, I wish we had more time in this first
Mm-hmm.
location. And I'll go ahead and say what that is because that's sort of where we start.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in an underground bunker because they're
Right.
hiding. They're trying to wait out this sort of apocalyptic plague that's come over. And I really like that aspect of that. The phrase that comes to mind is like closed room mystery, but that's not really what it is.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of that.
But yeah,
it's
feel.
it's kind of that feel of you don't know what's going on outside,
Mm-hmm.
and you have all these
It's
people.
kind of claustrophobic.
Yeah, you have all these people that are thrown into this very, very small area, and so you can't really write about the world because the world is so small. So you have to really focus on the characters. And I really felt in that section of the book, your characters really stood out as very strong, very strongly written characterization. As they had to deal with, allegedly, supposedly, they're safe, and yet they're still
Right.
dealing with this fact that a different kind of danger has followed them into this bunker, and it's just the danger of fear that resides inside the human heart.
Yes.
What did you do in sort of like creating that aspect of the novel? Like what research did you do, or what made you decide to write certain things in a certain way?
I had done research into these underground bunkers exactly like this, and some of them are based on missile silos. Some of them, well, a lot of them are actually.
Mm-hmm.
And these things exist. They're real. You could actually go buy one or buy a share in one in a lot of different states, ranging from the Dakotas to Kansas, and they're very expensive. And this particular one was based off of a real missile silo in western Nebraska, where I live in Nebraska. I don't live in western Nebraska, but it's based off of one in my state where people live. It's their home. And it was really fascinating to research, and it was interesting to kind of see like what you would need to make that actually work, as far as just facilities so that you could have food and function and stuff. But then, when you think about the dynamics of being somewhere like that for months and months, the way that just human nature is, it's like watching a reality show when you think of how it could play out. And there were very dark moments in that time period of the story. And actually, when I first planned the story out, I did not mean for that part of the story to be as long as it was even. I thought it would be much shorter and then kind of get to the action outside of that. But I found it so interesting that I ended up camping out there for a good portion of the book and really exploring what that was like. And I just had a ball. I hate to say it. I kind of giggled a little bit a few times.
Yeah, I know that when they finally, I know you're supposed to be like building the anticipation to, when they finally like get out and then the
Yep.
the quote, the story can begin. But I was actually like disappointed because I'm like, no, I want to know, I want to know more. I wanted more of this. I would have been just happy if you had just like spent the whole book there. That may have been too much, but
I would have loved to, honestly. That
Yeah.
would have been so fun to do one installment like that and then the next installment of the stuff afterwards. I think that would have been super fun.
Yeah, it really kind of like made the point that nowhere is safe, even the place you think is the safest.
Yeah.
And it also highlighted that sort of the idea of the human involvement, the human element, I guess. That there is, and I'm trying not to give away too much of the book. The reasons behind the outbreak is not exactly all natural.
Right.
And so you're still not getting away from that human element, even as wherever you're at, whether you're inside or outside. So the apocalyptic genre is fairly robust. There's not really a shortage of content from, I think like major things like The Walking Dead may sort of fit into that.
Sure.
That concept, and that's pretty popular. You go down the aisles of any bookstore, I think the YA genre has sort of like it married itself with sort of apocalyptic dystopia, gotta save the world thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your inspiration for this series, and then what do you think makes your book stand out from the rest?
For me, I always have enjoyed the apocalyptic genre. So anytime there's a movie, like The Day After Tomorrow, or all these movies like this, I gravitate towards that stuff. And I think it's because, life is so fast-paced, so complicated. There's so much going on. There's always so much information and all this stuff. And I think the appeal of the apocalyptic genre is that everything gets boiled down to its bare essentials, and that is simply just surviving and protecting the people that you love, and trying to get by. And I think that's the appeal, at least for me. I too love shows like The Walking Dead, and there's also a cult element in this, and I've always been fascinated by cults. And so that's very interesting to me as well, especially because in the apocalyptic scenario, people have to band together and find a way to trust in each other and try to survive together. So that seems like a really natural thing to go together. The thing that I would say is different about this duology from, much of the genre is that, yes, it's grim. Yes, there are some very dark moments, but there's always hope. There's always this thought that if we can do this thing, and it's the mission that Wynter's on in the first book, if we can do this thing and achieve this thing, it will get better. So we're not stuck here hopelessly forever. We can solve this. And so I think it's that thread of hope running through it. And that's really a big part of why the second installment is called A Single Light, because it's based on this idea, like, if you have 100 good people, or if you have 10 good people, or just one good person, while everything is falling apart and going dark around you, is the world worth saving? And that's the question of the whole book. So.
Yeah. It's almost like that conversation between God and Abram about Sodom and Gomorrah. Will you save it for this many? Yes. Will you save it for this many? Yes. And in this case, just seeing Wynter's her power. There's an interesting comparison for me that I saw between the first and second book. In that, in the beginning of the first book, Wynter she's sort of holed up and kept away from the world in the community of the cult that she's a part of. And then in the second book, she's also holed up and kept away from the world by being in this bunker. And in both cases, the expectation is sort of like, if we stay here, it will get better.
We're safe.
Yeah, we're safe.
Yeah.
And in both cases, she finds out that that's not at all the case. And it's only by stepping out into the world and taking an active role in fixing these problems. That's the only hope there. It's not a passive hope of like, well, we'll just sit here and wait and things will get better. But it really becomes an active hope and becoming a participant in advocating for and working toward and making that hope happen. I think that there's a lot to say in that about how regular people should approach the world as well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's our natural MO to want to stay within our comfort zones, stay within our communities, stay within kind of the safe confines where we feel comfortable, because let's face it, nobody likes to feel uncomfortable, so we gravitate towards those areas, whether they are communities or geographical locations or groups of friends or groups of people, whatever it is, because they inform our identity, and we also feel safe. But the thing I really wanted to explore, especially from the ex-cult member angle, was, yes, even when the world is falling apart around you and there's all you can see is terrible things or evil things, there are still beautiful moments of just beauty and grace, and and what you put out there is what you will see reflected back. So if you're expecting terrible, horrible, fearful things, yes, you'll see that. But if you're looking for beauty out in the world, you will find it. And it's kind of the same idea of, becoming the change that you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I love that. So, yeah.
So now that you've written 2 books in the apocalyptic genre, and you have researched all of these doomsday scenarios and doomsday prepping, do you
I'm
feel
prepared.
Okay, that was my question. Do you feel like you got a good handle on what you're going to do if there's ever a real outbreak?
Well, I joke all the time about this because, I'm married to a farmer. We live in the country. I've got my husband and my oldest son are championship trap shooters, and every time I watch them compete, I always think to myself, we're prepared for the zombie apocalypse because, I can shoot too, but, I know for sure those two can pick off any zombies that come over the hill.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
When you're married to hunters and fishermen, and we eat deer meat, out on the farm, and it's so funny as an author. That's always forefront in my mind whenever I look around at our life.
Yeah, you're great. I've got a real shot at living through this. I am one of the characters
It's
that survives.
like, we've got our own wells. We've got gardens, and so.
Okay, so in the event of an apocalypse, this is your official. This is your official notice. In the event of an apocalypse, everyone heads out to Tosca Lee's farm.
Yeah,
she will take care of all of us. But be
You
careful.
might get
Don't look
mistaken for a
like a
zombie.
zombie. Don't look like a zombie.
Don't walk like a zombie. Don't look like a zombie. Yeah.
So outside of a single light, you always have multiple irons in the fire, I know. And one of those, and I'm not sure how much of this you can talk about, but your books, we referenced them a little earlier, Progeny and Firstborn. I don't know if you have any news regarding a Progeny movie, but I do know that it's like possibly a thing. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the Progeny and its sequel, Firstborn, are in development for television. Okay. With the same people, actually, who are also developing The Line Between and A Single Light. And I'm really super excited. I don't have a lot to be able to share about it at this time. Things are always kind of changing and moving and evolving with that stuff. And I've just kind of learned that, I just need to kind of follow along with what's happening and offer, answers to questions when they're asked. And I've been very lucky to be kept in the loop and included in the discussions. And we have such a great showrunner for these new books I'm so excited about. And we haven't announced it, so I don't know if I'm able to, but I'm really, really just loving what the showrunner is doing with the story and the questions that he's asking, and his credits are just amazing. So I have really high hopes. They're getting ready to go start pitching it to networks, this new one. The Progeny's had some flux and change, so I'm kind of waiting to be able to talk about that some more. But it's super fun. That said, I can't really sit around and wait for that stuff to happen. I have to keep writing because, the stuff can take years. The Progeny development has taken, 4 years so far. So, you kind of just keep doing your thing and you watch and see what happens. We've got a couple others that are in development as well, but have not been publicly announced. So I kind of just go by what they announce and announce it when they do, because then it's out.
Yeah. It's the movie world is its own animal for sure. And I feel like there's always like the movie world loves to take ideas from the book world, and unfortunately, not all of them actually make it. But I definitely have high hopes for your books. I think you're such a visual.
Me too. I hope one of them makes it.
Yeah, such a visual storyteller that I think that it'd be great to see. Great to see that in a visual medium as well.
Thank you.
As well. So, all right. So here's the thing. What do you have coming up next? You're always writing, I think. You should always be writing anyway. You have done biblical narrative. You have done, how do you even categorize Progeny and Firstborn? Sort of like a supernatural, psychological thriller.
Kind of speculative. Thriller.
Yeah. And now you've done
young adult a little.
Yeah, and now you've done this sort of apocalyptic genre. So you're sort of branching out. 'Cause I feel like you kind of made your name with you've done fantasy, of course, with Ted Dekker. Where do you see yourself going next, or even more? I guess more than that, you can talk about in general, but specifically, what are you working on right now?
Okay, so right now we're getting ready to go out for contract. So this is a conversation my agent and I have been having for quite a while, and over many installments. Because I've got a whole handful of ideas, and I want to do them all, and they range from historical to suspense thriller type stuff, and even some women's fiction. And I love all these ideas. The two that we're going to lead with are historical and historical thrillers. So we'll lead with those. But that said, I've got most publishers don't want to buy just one-off book. They usually want 2 or 3 or something. So I've got a short list of my favorite ideas that I just really, really love these stories. So the time periods may be different. Some may happen now. Some may happen in the past. I've really fallen in love with just trying to keep the really, really tight pacing, because I love keeping readers reading up way too late at night. I just think that's fun. And one of the historicals is we're looking for a home for it, and it's actually a World War II story. And I think it's not my usual genre, but I think it's a very important story to be told. So
yeah. Well, we look forward to it for sure, and I think I can speak for everyone who's listening to this to say that we look forward to it.
Thank you.
But whichever direction you've gone, it has always been exciting. So we trust you to just tell us a good story. To just tell a good story, regardless of where you go with it.
Well, you have more confidence than I do, because every time I sit down to write, I always think, how is this going to happen?
Yeah. So I have a few questions from the mailbag. This is something I kind of
Let's hear 'em.
Pitched it out to the Life of Story Facebook page. And I'll do this for most of my podcasts, by the way. So if you're listening, you can go to the Facebook page, and you might see a post that that has an asking for questions. So if you want to get on that and get mentioned on the podcast, then that's a great way of doing that. But you have to ask good questions. I only take the good ones. Caitlin Lutz wants to know how your writing schedule and your lifestyle has changed since you've entered farm life.
Oh gosh. Well, the farm life isn't the thing so much as the instant motherhood. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the real.
Is there really a difference?
Oh yeah, totally different. I remember when I got married and I told my agent, I said, "Look, I'm acquiring 4 children because I'm marrying a single dad." And my agent said, "Oh, there go your deadlines." But no, I've kept my deadlines. But I will say, I was always a little behind on things like email and stuff like that before, and now I'm really behind.
Mm.
And so, if you email me and ask me questions or send me a letter about a book, I respond myself. But it might just take me a while, and my to-do list is long, and I feel scattered a lot. And I haven't quite figured out how to do it all. So that's kind of the main thing. The other thing is, I have a real appreciation for the quiet of the country and just the freedom out there, and it's really beautiful. And that's coming from a city girl. And this was a real Green Acres situation for us. So. The only thing I wish is that there was a Trader Joe's closer by. That would really make my life.
Yeah. I don't even. Do they have any in Nebraska? I'm not sure.
Yes, in Lincoln. So when I'm in Lincoln and I come into the capital quite a bit, and I still have a small home here, then I can go do some of that stuff. And now that our oldest son just started college here, I get to come into town and see him as well. So.
Yeah, very good.
But yeah, it's definitely changed quite a lot. So, I eat a lot more deer meat than I used to.
Yeah, true. Yeah, country
and
life.
Catfish.
Country life will do that to you for sure. You don't get that on any city menus.
No.
David Lee wants to know if you've ever had an idea for a story, and then found out that that was already someone else has already written it.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, but there's kind of an adage that there's no new ideas really, and to some extent that's true. A lot of stories I've written have already been done. Like people have written stories about Judas Iscariot. People have written about the Queen of Sheba. A lot of the people I've written about the post-apocalyptic, or the apocalyptic, I would say, pandemic thing, that's been done very, very well by many people, from Michael Crichton to Scott Sigler to, there's so many. So they've all been done, but I think the challenge is finding a fresh spin on it, and, just a new way to entertain readers who love the genre. Yeah.
Last question for you, and we have a lot of people who listen to this podcast that are writers. They want to be, they're writing that first book, or maybe they're writing their 5th or 6th book. So talking about the art of story is really important to me. What advice would you give people who are trying to sort of break into the publishing industry?
For novel writing?
For novel writing, yes.
Yeah. This is something I could talk all day about. And actually, I am forming a writer's retreat and conference workshop with Nicole Bart and Kimberly Stewart. So we will have more information coming out about this, but we are going to be literally talking all day about it next June in South Dakota. So anybody who's interested in that can write in to me, and I can put you on our mailing list for that. But for new writers, I would say, a couple really important things. Get the story done. You'd be amazed how many people write to me and say, I've got a great idea. How do I get an editor? I've got, I started it. How do I find an agent? And it's like, you can't get an editor or an agent or any of that stuff until you finish the book. And the book is edited and polished and really good. So you have to get to the end, and then don't worry about that other stuff until your book is finished and it's the best that you can make it. I would also say you need to really study up on a story arcs and story structure. And there's a lot of great books that can help you with that. Everything from Donald Moss's Writing the Breakout Novel to Michael Hake's 3-act structure, or Save the Cat. There's one specifically for novelists called Save the Cat Writes a Novel. That's a great resource. Because the reason why that's so important, I mean, and I think it's very tempting to say, no, I'm gonna do my structure the way I want to do it, which is fine. But when readers come to novels, and when they come to novels in specific genres that they enjoy, they are looking for something. They feel comfortable with certain kinds of structure, and so they're paying money to go escape from this reality for a while, just as we would with a movie or something. And you need to give them what they came to that book and that genre for. So make good on that promise and deliver that to them, and they will become a fan and continue to read your book.
Yeah, I think it's really good advice. It's really good advice. I like that sort of idea of like, I think sometimes well, this is my art, I can do what I want with it, and that's true, but that doesn't mean that people will read it.
Right, exactly.
But so there is this sense of like, who am I writing for, and what are the expectations with that, and how can I tell my unique story inside of those expectations?
Exactly.
How can I use this structure to my advantage? Because if you throw everything out the window, then you know.
Exactly. Because if you're writing it just for yourself and you want to do it a specific way, then that is wonderful and that's beautiful, and that's exactly what you should do. And I genuinely believe we're all creative beings. We were all meant to express creativity. It's in our DNA. We're created that way. But if you want to sell it, then the focus has to be on the consumer. It has to be, about being of service to the person who's going to pick up that story and go along for the ride.
Yeah. Well, Tosca, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the podcast. It has been great to talk with you. I know it was so, it's been so long, and it is, I don't know, I'm excited. I'm just giddy over here. Getting to talk with you, talk to everyone. It's a great way of getting to talk with all of my favorite people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And you gotta get that next book out. We'll do it again. We won't wait five, however long it was, years between.
Now let's not wait that many years again.
Hey, thanks for listening in. If you want to hear more, check the links in the post below or visit lifeisstory.com to see all the latest reviews, interviews, and giveaways.